Hi guys, welcome back to eleVR
Talk Chat Show Thing,
Talk
episode
Chat
2.
Show
Thing.
Talk Chat Show Thing.
We wanted to introduce you to our very own Andrea.
Andrea Hawksley, our developer, who made maybe what you're watching this on right now, if you're watching it on the eleVR player.
And we're going to bring her back a little later to talk all about web and VR. It's going to be very exciting.
Hi!
Right, episode 2. Today we are going to talk about stitching errors, different types of stitching errors. We're going to talk about our new camera head.
And we're going to do a little review of the DK2 and all of its woes and greatness.
It's got woes and greatness. Some of the greatness is like whoa, and some of the woe is like great. All right, segment 1. So, last week we had a different camera head than this week. We had many stitching errors.
We had the homemade version
The
last
homemade
week.
version. So there's basically 2 types of stitching errors. Last week, and here's where we can like fade in and show an example. The first simple one is just a simple temporal stitching error where
when the videos get out of sync in different cameras, and for example, like if I stand up really quickly, then the top of my head is seen by a different camera, and if they're not perfectly aligned, then my head is moving all around, which you probably saw when Vi was reaching across the back of the couch last week.
Right, and it was because we were basically stitching different times. Like the cameras were recording video, and we grabbed the wrong, which if we spent a lot of time we could have corrected, but part of why we're doing this talk show and not fancy dancy stuff right now is because we don't want to spend all of our time correcting stitching errors when we don't think that's especially an interesting way to spend our time.
It just shows you that like currently this is the problem this is currently one of the problems in VR, and eventually we'll have perfect cameras that do everything perfectly, but for now,
Right.
That's what you get.
Yeah, because right now we're just using separate GoPros. They don't talk to each other. They don't sync with each other. We have to do all of the syncing by hand, which takes time. Okay, so that's the first kind. That's a syncing. It's a time stitch error. The second is a space stitch error. That's probably the one you think of more often when you're thinking of stitching.
So
error.
if you think about the camera, it's basically just a big disc of cameras with a little bit on the top and a little bit on the bottom, so you can see up and down. But actually, if I get too close to you, the 2 cameras that are stitching both into your right eye can no longer see an overlapping place. So then your face or whatever is in the area you're stitching like 2 sides of your head together or something. This camera simply just can't see there. So the closer we get to the camera, the less you're able to see what's going on. So we call that a stitching distance. These cameras have about a 6-foot stitching distance on an edge between 2 sets of eyes. Right now I'm sitting on the face of 2 eyes, which I'll show you using this handy dandy iPad that I hope is not locked. It is not. Also, I don't know where the camera.
There, yeah. There we go.
Can they see?
No.
Here, Vi will hold for you while I talk. So the camera head that we're using right now is a 3D printed nylon model made by 360 Heroes, and because it's a little larger than our old model, it actually has a farther stitching distance, but it keeps the cameras in really tight lock every time, so it's a little easier to make more than one video. And you can see it over there. It's blue and beautiful.
Yeah. So this is notably pentagonal. So wherever there's a kind of a pair of cameras, the stitching is going to be good up close. And then when you're between at one of the little corners of the pentagon, like you're not going to be able to see my face. My face is going to look really weird because just the cameras physically can't catch it that close. But it does, like, whether you want an even camera or an odd camera might matter. Like, we might want to go back to our square camera if we want to have 2 people sitting directly opposite each other.
So until there's one perfect ball that can do all the things that you want and can change its focal distance based on how close or far away an object is and all those kind of things, different camera heads will actually give you different results. And this one has 14 cameras instead of 12.
The bright side is that this camera head is a little like stiffer. It really keeps the cameras where you put them, unlike our foam core version being 3D printed. This might be the first thing ever filmed with this camera head. We got it from 360 Heroes,
Oh, no, they've
but
filmed other things on their website.
with this?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Or at least they have videos that they have filmed. I don't know which head they're from.
Right, because I have one of those camera heads that's just like mathematically impossible to get anything good out of it.
Right.
So I'm a little suspicious that like they design these things and they don't actually try them. But maybe.
If you're gonna buy a camera head, don't buy a stereo camera head that tilts the cameras out of the normal alignment of eyeballs, because no one watches VR like this, and it won't work.
This, and then
Another aspect of this that we talked a little bit about last week is that we're currently shooting in stereo, so you see 3D when you're watching it. And we're going to do a little test where we switch right now from stereo to mono to let you guys have a little feel for how this kind of setting feels in mono versus switching back to stereo. Some people get a little less dizzy in mono, or some people like the feeling of the feeling of 3D more. So we'd be interested to know what you guys think and what you feel like looks better. I personally love 3D. I think it's so pretty.
I know.
It's so pretty.
Space is great.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So one question I get a lot is people will be like, oh, well, someday will we be able to have no stitching errors, the software will be good enough, and you won't have any of these problems anymore where, you go all around and in between here it might not be stitched perfectly. And the answer is that if you're stitching in mono, like if you actually have a camera ball centered around a point and you only want to see a view from a point, not in stereo, then yes, you can someday have your perfect stitching where everything, all the light rays go directly into a point through your sphere of cameras. But if you want to have stereo, the answer is no. There's no way to ever get perfect stitching. You can't ever get rid of stitching errors unless you do a lot of things by hand to just make it look like...
Yeah, to paint over it, which I don't really consider a fix for stitching. That's just computer-generated graphics.
Right, that's just making it look good. There's like no fundamental right answer for how to stitch between two cameras that are not in the same location. If you're not centered around the same location, there's no correct answer. It's all up to what you want to look good.
What you're trying to achieve. We were talking a little earlier today about light field cameras and being able to get to take a mono video and then to have light field effects so that you're not only seeing mono, but you would also be able to move slightly, and there would be a rendered environment taken from a light field camera that would give you parallax. It's a little different from what we're doing right now, which is stereo. It would be a way, way higher amount of data. It would be huge.
Yeah, so light field camera knows what all the incoming light kind of looks like from an entire area, whereas if you take a sphere of footage, that's what stuff looks like from a single point. Or in the case of stereo video, like neither video, if you now have a left eye video and a right eye video, neither of those videos are like what the world looks like from one point. It's kind of this weird warped view of the world that tricks you into thinking that you're seeing what things look like from this point and this point. But obviously, as you move your head, those points move. So really, you should just go to eleVR.com and read our blog posts.
Read some math posts. Okay, so while Vi switches the microphone to our Andrea over here, I just wanted to let you guys introduce you to this little nubbin that came with our new camera, which I kind of like. It's kind of like a dog clicker, if you guys have used those for positive reinforcement training for dogs, where you give them the little treat afterward. You just click it, and it helps you sync the cameras. I don't know why I didn't think of this before. It's an interesting replacement for the big clapper that people used to use in film. But I also kind of want there to be a big hula hoop clapper so you can see it in every camera, and you just snap the top on it, and I don't know. I know it's totally ridiculous, but I thought it would really be fun. So this is Andrea! Everyone would be very excited. This is Andrea's first time being on camera, so everyone should be very supportive. She's a little nervous, but it's gonna be fine. So we were talking yesterday about methods to integrate the Oculus directly into Firefox, is that right?
Yeah, so as you've probably seen, our player is on the web, and right now we're using VR.js, which is a plugin that you can get for Chrome or Firefox or even Safari.
Safari.
Yeah.
Wait, there's no Internet Explorer version?
Would you want one? I
That's clearly my browser of choice.
Yeah, I actually forget whether or not it does Internet Explorer. I sort of feel like it doesn't, but the fact is I don't really have IE to test it on, so I didn't worry about it. But VR.js is a plugin that someone wrote, and now that more and more people, like we made this web video player, and maybe other people want to make VR stuff on the web, there's actually someone at Chrome and someone at Firefox who are working on making native browser support for VR devices. And part of the idea is that way, I don't have to know whether you have a DK1 or a DevKit 2, or if you're using something that's not an Oculus, although I don't think they have support for that yet.
Eventually.
The idea is that I would be making the same calls and just being like, hey, this is the rotation, and it would automatically apply whatever distortions were necessary for whatever VR headset you're using. So this is sort of this web VR project that some people are working on. I think it's actually mostly one guy at Firefox and one guy at Chrome, and you're not going to have it on your regular Firefox or Chrome that you have on your computer. It's still in a development build.
Right. So do they support DK2 yet? Because it seems like not that much does.
They both support DK2.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And
since the plugin that we use to get information into our player does not support DK2.
Yeah, that's right. VR.js is an awesome open source thing, and the person who's working on it, probably because like many open source projects, it's just this one guy, has not touched it in about 10 months. For all I know, he doesn't have a DK2 to test it on yet. I mean, ours only just arrived.
You can borrow
last week.
ours.
Yeah. So he has not, as of right now, made any changes to support DK2, and I don't know whether he's planning to or not. Hopefully he is, but it's possible he's also like, oh, well, now that they're doing native browser support, my plugin is going to be obsolete. There's no point to keep supporting it.
They're currently only in development builds.
Right.
When is the plan for them to come out in actual browsers?
Yeah, so I don't think there's any plan right now.
Of course.
Yeah. It's unclear. The development cycle is a little bit slower than you might expect. Basically just starting. DK2 is still very much a development kit.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something that masses are going to use, and for a lot of web browser stuff, there's no point in even pushing this feature out to non-developers, like outside the developer's build, if like you're not even going to be able to use the Oculus if you aren't kind of technically savvy to begin with.
So if people are interested in working on it currently, can they contribute, or?
I think that for at least some of the projects you can contribute. There's a bunch of people who are working on web VR projects.
Mm-hmm. We've seen like user interfaces that let people navigate the web in VR, and I guess like pseudo operating systems and web players, and we've seen a few like online games.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of interest in web VR. I think most of the people working in web VR really believe that web VR is going to be where the future of VR is, because if we think that the web is the future of everything, and it kind of seems like it's going that way.
I know that I'm addicted to the cloud.
Yeah. And if we think VR is the future of everything, it's a little weird to think that the web is the future of everything except for VR. So
I'm really looking forward to being able to slap on my headset and do some like actual Google Hangouting, as opposed to like looking at a terribly lit image of someone I can barely see. And
yeah, but the thing is, you slap on the headset to go Google Hangout, then you actually, no one can see your face.
That's true. Maybe I get an avatar.
So everyone just has an avatar. I know I just got something from Leap Motion about how they were working on integrating their stuff with Oculus things so that you can have your
Leap
hands.
Motion?
Leap Motion it's this little widget about this big, and it detects hand movement like fairly well, so you can have one in front of your computer and like move your hands around. So it's really, really like specialized for, you know, this like, you know, moving your hands around and performing actions, move things. Like the future of how you interact with things is hands in the air. Yeah, whether or not we like that or not is unclear.
I get very tired holding my arms up like this for a really long time.
But I think part of the point of the integration would be like, say you have this headset on and you have an avatar.
Yeah.
You can move your hands around to interact with the things in your virtual environment.
Right.
And it'll be able to accurately detect your hand movement, which right now nothing else really does. And since you do use your hands to interact with things, if you're going to interact with your virtual, like picking things up, you want to have a good representation of where your hands are and the things that you're picking up are.
Oh, we should talk about mobile.
Right.
Because currently we have Android support, and there are some like mobile headsets coming out. We know about Wearality's mobile-only headset using a Nexus, I think it is. Android and mobile headsets seem like something that will be great for video, but maybe not for. We've been having some trouble just trying to crush our videos down to a size big enough or small enough to go on an Android device.
Yeah, well, optimally, everything will just get better and better at playing videos. But like one issue that we have had making stuff work on Android is just like, how can we make the quality of our videos such that you can both see it on an Android device and have it not look terrible because it's just all pixels.
Right.
Because
you need a lot of pixels to be able to look around, but then that makes the size huge. It means you can't put it on the phone. It's a whole problem.
If you're looking at a rectangle that's this big of video, you can have reasonably high quality within that video. But then if you split it in half, because one half's the right eye and one half's the left eye, and then you stretch it all the way around so that it gets the whole thing, then the number of pixels in any given part of the field of view that you actually end up looking at is actually just a tiny portion of what the original video is.
Right.
But the device still can't play a video with that much pixel density. So you end up with worse video quality on pretty much any Android device possible.
Are there any advantages to mobile VR that you see that
So I think
other than quality loss?
I mean, there's quality loss. The tracking is not quite as good right now.
Right, there's a little like ghost tracking a little bit.
Yeah,
like
they
tend to slide when you're not moving.
They tend to slide. And especially Google Android's Cardboard, which we have one over there.
You can see on the pillow over here.
They actually have a little magnet which you can use as a button, which is super cool to have a button on your headset. Like, what a great idea, and who knew you could put one on while you had your phone in the thing. But the button is made of a magnet, and some phones actually use their magnetometer for part of their position tracking.
Oh, so it makes it worse.
It actually makes the drift worse because your phone will just start to drift in the direction of the magnet because it keeps being like, you must be rotating because north keeps being that way. No matter what I do, it's always that way. I think that if you use their native API, they may actually disable or try to disable that for somewhat, but right now our Android, we're actually having the same piece of software doing Oculus and Android, and it's on the web because yay, web VR.
Because web.
It's just doing position sensing the way your phone natively does position sensing. For advantages for mobile headsets, I think there's actually a bunch. The biggest advantage is just there are so many cables involved with connecting like the Oculus to anything.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. I picked that up. This is the DK2, and it's connected right now, and those cables all go to it. It actually plugs into a computer 3 times.
Yeah.
And it can also plug into power. So it has 2 USB connections, one for the headset and one for the little tracking guy.
Yep.
And one connection to HDMI or video, and a connection to power, and a box in the middle that connects all the things.
This is an example of why it's a dev kit and not a consumer product.
Yeah.
Because mess any one of these up and none of it works.
Yeah, so that's not, and hopefully that will get better. But the cables are definitely a problem. I think as far as usability goes, just the way like everyone seems to be moving, especially for like entertainment or like just general like hangout things towards the web, you kind of have the same thing happening towards mobile. Everyone is, I'd rather carry something this big around. If it's gonna give me the same internet as the thing this big, I'd rather have this. And it's also sort of, you're carrying it around already.
Yeah.
Like, how many things can we package into one device? Like, is it a phone? Is it a camera? Can I write my emails on it?
Right. Can I do my VR on it?
Can I do my VR on it? And I think if the answer is yes, then you're going to see that everyone's going to want to do their VR on it anyways. Probably things will start moving towards mobile VR for a lot of the non-hardcore purposes.
We're doing a live demo, so be patient.
Okay, so cable management.
Is there enough space? Do you need this to move over?
I think there's enough space. It's just a cable management issue.
Oh, and how are we going to do the head tracking if
you're
she's
right.
not seeing the
Okay.
computer?
All right, so this is the IR camera. You have to set this up so it sees the headset. And the IR camera is on. Why is it on? Because we must be showing a demo. Are we showing a demo? Nope.
Nope. So we're showing a picture right now of the front of the DK2 taken through a mobile camera sensor. Those sensors can actually see into IR just like these cameras can, so you can see the little dots on the front of the headset. Those dots are what the tracking camera is looking for to let you lean side to side instead of just be able to turn your head inside of the sphere. So right now, Andrea is going to be doing a demo that Vi and I have already tried while we talk a little bit about the benefits and the downfalls of the new DK2, and we're gonna see how Andrea reacts to this interesting demo that we tried. The demo that she's trying is called Sightlines the Chair, and I highly recommend you download it. We got it from the Oculus subreddit.
Setting up. Health and safety warning. Okay. Okay.
So while Andrea's trying out the Sightlines demo, we are going to talk a little bit about the DK2, which you can see her using right now. I gotta admit, the first time I used it, I just tried the demo scene where you launch just this tiny little thing. It's just a 3D desk, and you're looking at sort of a scoreboard in a big empty space. And the first time I leaned slightly to the side, I was like, yes,
Yeah.
this is what I want to do. I like this thing. I am on board. I was definitely into it until I realized that's the it didn't get better from there. It just got more difficult to use.
Right, but definitely, like the moment you had that first moment of parallax, with this doesn't have this, you move your head to the side, everything moves with you. All you have is this illusion of 3D. But the moment that parallax is just like, yes, this is the future.
Yeah, I just loved the feeling. I felt very inside of the place. I was obviously I was sitting in a chair, and there was a chair inside of the demo, which I think is an interesting way to get people to start inside of VR, is that you emulate the setting that you know is similar to where they are going to be using their headset. It was an interesting way to softly introduce me, which is actually the way that the Sightlines demo starts too. And the leaning was just very convincing. It gave you another sort of sense. It gave the world a little bit more texture. You got to lean in and zoom in things. Looks much better.
Yeah, so the
If it only
resolution
worked.
makes a huge difference in stereo.
Yes.
That when your eyes are trying to line up these two images you're seeing of my face to see me in stereo, when you actually have pixels to do that with, it's just so much more convincing. It's so much easier. It's less work for your brain. Just having the information there so that you can mesh it, which you'd think, I don't know, it's a little unintuitive. You think that the less there is to see, the easier it would be to process the information.
Right. But our brains are really good at eliminating information, right? We're always taking in a lot of stuff, and our brains are just no, that's fine.
Right.
You don't have to look at any of that.
Total experts at taking the exact. So the more it is real life, the more that's kind of what we evolved for. So this is the DK1, or at least, which you could put googly eyes on it. We're gonna figure out what to do with those, but.
We'll have some sort of bedazzling session later on where you figure out how to decorate that thing and not interrupt the IR tracking.
Yeah, so the actual shape of the thing is a little bit different. This has steeper curvature, which fits my face better. I have a very narrow face, but Emily fits
I have
the
a
DK2
giant
better.
man head. So the DK2 actually fits me very well, although it does sort of feel like it's a narrower field of view inside of the headset, even though they say it's not narrower.
It's not narrow? I thought the DK2 is narrower than this one.
I'm not sure. It just feels a little like you're wearing horse blinders, sort of.
Right. It's especially after spending some time with Wearality, where
so
Wearality
wide.
is so nice, so
You're
high res.
Whoa.
But Wearality doesn't have the come we never know the name? How
Leaning,
to go
it's called leaning.
Leaning, yeah. Which this doesn't have either. Those lenses on the DK2, if you're in the sweet spot of the lens, it's very high res, not very high res, but higher res than, pretty much anything else. It's the highest res thing that you can get your hands on. If you're in the sweet spot, you get that resolution. If you shift the tiniest bit, it goes away really fast.
Which is a problem for you because the headset tends to sink this way on you because your face is narrower and you don't have as high of cheekbones. So you're not your face isn't holding it up.
This is tiny. I don't have all that jaw and width.
Yeah.
So if you tilt slightly the wrong angle, you get all the chromatic aberration. So which
basically just means rainbowing on all the colors.
It just scoops in under my cheekbone and is like, whoop, you don't have enough jaw. Where is all your jaw? I expected jaw. So,
well, we were talking about okay, so maybe the solution to this problem is that you, instead of buying one of these things online, you go to a store and they stick your face in some mush and they measure your face and how your cheekbones are, and then you buy one and it has the right foam for you or the right lenses.
You don't need to stick your face in mush. You can just
laser face.
Just laser face.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, there's lots of ways to face, right? Anyway, and also my IPD, my interpupillary distance, the width between your eyes. If your eyes are a little narrower or wider than the Oculus, which is meant for a 6.5, that's average male interpupillary distance is 6.5.
Yeah. The lag is really, really bad, which means that since you're looking around a lot and the lag is really bad, it eventually just starts to get to you. The demo itself is some cool, 3D environment that you're looking around in. With some nice ideas. It's still going on. If I just had the power to now it's kind of cool. There's spheres and cubes of brick all around.
That is the same point where you bailed.
Yeah, that's where I got out too. There's a certain Andre and I both have a 4-minute that's as long as I'm possibly gonna go limit. But I have a much longer VR stamina.
It's true.
But I play a lot of first-person shooters and weird wobbly games. So I think I'm a little more used to time lag, eye face thing.
Yeah.
Fashion lag and judder, which some people are better at compensating at, but it depends. So right now there's basically 2 players that are working for DK2 that you might be watching this on if you're watching this on a DK2. Whirligig, I just tried for the first time. It's a Unity app and it has that same problem where it's got a lot of lag. And then the one that we usually use because we don't like that lag is Color Eyes. So that has it has much better head tracking because it's not going through another whole thing. It's just natively they developed it for the Oculus. They're not using Unity or using some other thing. So it's got smooth head tracking.
And if you know one that we have not tried yet, feel free to let us know.
All the web players and all the players. All the players. So, chromatic aberration.
Yeah, that was another problem with this video. So, when you have a lens, it doesn't matter what the lens is, you have this lens here. It's distorting light and it gets some chromatic aberration, which is when you're looking at something and you see the rainbows or something, the light's being distorted and different frequencies of light are not being distorted the same amount. They go through the lens and they don't do precisely the same thing. This is true for all lenses.
Right, including the lenses in your eyes.
Yeah, it's true. And you can do some compensation for it. Some materials are better than others. And depending on how thick the lenses are, obviously that makes a difference as well.
Okay, what fascinates me about chromatic aberration is the word, the phrase, chromatic aberration. I don't know, so many people now, chromatic aberration. It's this very polysyllabic phrase, and now everyone, it just rolls off the tongue. Chromatic aberration, of course.
It's a fun phrase to say, but you get the same thing with all kinds of phrases and niche groups, and if it becomes a problem, then maybe it'll extend beyond niche groups. We have Go over some good examples.
Well, I often think about the word electrolyte. I think about the
Electrolyte.
word electrolyte all the time because there's a much shorter word for what electrolyte is. People shorten words. People will shorten 2-syllable words to be 1-syllable words, and yet they don't shorten the word electrolyte. They say the whole thing.
Do they know that it's just salt?
Like, right? It's a 1-syllable word.
Salt, people tend to think of it as table salt, which is NaCl, right?
Right.
So when someone says salt, you're immediately thinking table salt. And you don't usually use salt to reference all kinds of different salts the way you use electrolyte to
That's
reference
true.
all kinds of different salts.
Unless you're a chemist. And the word chromatic aberration, I don't know. I think about these things. Outro! Okay, come outro with us.
Our cameras are dying, so we have to outro as fast as humanly possible. Thank you so much for watching our episode this week. Oh no, camera 5 just died.
Again!
Okay, here we go.
All right.
We'll have another episode as soon as we can. We're going to be going to XOXO and Oculus Connect coming up soon. So if you're at either of those conferences, come say hi to us. And you can find us on Twitter at ViHart, at Emily Eifler, and at Andrea Huxley. Thanks for watching.
ViHart. There's 2 of me.
Oh, there's 2 of you.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Oh, and we're going to outro and have a little bit of a thing we're working on. Go see it right now. It's happening to you right now.